So, Yegor Dwomin is out for the season, and I kind of have mixed feelings about that. I understand why he is kind of, having to leave the season so soon. But, I think there are some positives and negatives that this can do for Dwomin depending on how his career plays out. Apologies if things seem a bit awkward for me. This is the first time I'm actually using a face cam. So we're going to see how this works. We're going to see how this plays out. And yeah, hit that subscribe button and we will get into this. So the reason why Dwomin is out for the season, it's because of some issues he's been having since, I guess, even before the season started. We knew for a while that Dwomin was having issues with his plantar tendon, like he's been having plantar fasciitis. I don't know how to actually pronounce that word, but it's basically something that's been bothering him. It's actually the reason why he was developing his jumper, because during training camp he just couldn't move. So, they're finally going to give him a procedure. From reports, it is a non invasive one, so not really any kind of intense or serious surgery. And yeah, there's not really a lot of issues I'd see right away with the kind of plantar issues that he's been having. The main concern I kind of highlighted, this wasn't really highlighted in any reports, but I think it has a lot more to do with, concerns regarding Achilles issues. I'm not saying like he's going to have an Achilles tear. There's no report suggesting that he also has Achilles issues. Just there is, from my kind of basic understanding, there is a correlation between issues between your plantar kind of tendon issues and your, or is it a ligament? I don't actually know, but there's a difference between kind of plantar issues and Achilles issues, but there is a correlation that one can impact the other. Uh, okay, sorry. Sorry about that. I had to cut because there was a car and I was losing my train of thought. So where was I? Yeah, so the main issue is just kind of his plantar fasciitis. It kind of impacts the way you walk. It impacts how much pressure you could put on your heel. But I've also seen that there's a strong correlation between plantar issues and Achilles issues. Not necessarily an Achilles rupture. There's no report suggesting that that's a concern woman would have to deal with. However, I have seen that there are like some studies showing a correlation between the two. Mainly in that if your plantar issues are impacting the way you walk and the way you use your legs and feet, it can stress the Achilles tendon a lot more. So, I think this was the right call to kind of go through this procedure, which I'll talk about more in a second. But, it kind of sucks to, have it happen. And again, I'll explain more about that, but I want to first briefly look at what that means for the Brooklyn Nets, because unfortunately for someone like me, as much as I am a die-hard Brooklyn Nets fan, there really isn't a lot to talk about with the Brooklyn Nets right now, especially since this channel is very Brooklyn Nets oriented. Yes, like we have a ton of rookies that are still doing great. Danny Wolf is doing great. Traore is still doing what Traore does. Neither of them have had crazy games, in my opinion. Saraf, I think, is also injured, and Powell might be injured. He might be in and out of the rotations. I don't really remember. But there is kind of this bigger issue with, I guess, losing Dwomin. I think Dwomin is the most interesting of the five rookies. That's not to say that the others are just scrubs, but I think losing out on the development of a 6'8" point guard who can play the shooting guard and small forward position, it kind of sucks. Traore, he's been phenomenal. Danny Wolf, he's been phenomenal. I'm sure I'll make videos for them later. I'm going to make videos about Powell and Saraf at least at the end of the season. Uh, but yeah, I just think that the Nets don't have a lot going for them that's new that you can really talk about, right? Like I could keep making videos about how good Traore's been. I can make videos about how steady Danny Wolf has been. I could talk about MPJ. I could talk about Claxton. I could talk about these guys, but none of them really stand out. Like I know this isn't the right term, but Dwomin really was like a unicorn of a prospect. You think of tall point guards like Cade Cunningham, Luka Doncic. These guys are like 6'5", 6'6". But Dwoman is like a 6'8", 6'9" point guard, right? Like the Nets had Ben Simmons, but Ben Simmons couldn't shoot a three for his life. Magic Johnson is like the archetype of that super tall, like flashy passing point guard, and that's what. I'm not saying Dwoman is Magic Johnson. Don't get me like that. That is an insane thing to say. But I'm saying that like the prospect of a 19-year-old 6'9", essentially guard who can play make and space the floor is just really interesting. So it kind of just sucks that for the last 30 to 20 games we're not going to have him. I mean, if I had to pick players that are still interesting to watch for the Nets, like obviously, like you have the interesting games of like Michael Porter Jr., Nick Claxton, Noah Clowney when he's doing pretty well. But really, when you're looking at young guys, and that's really where my headspace is, the main focus then becomes like Danny Wolf, Nolan Traore, Josh Minott. Josh Minott has been phenomenal in his last few games. That was definitely a steal from the Boston Celtics. I don't know if he keeps up that productivity, but he's had like in the past 4 to 5 games, like 3 20-point games. Like that is insane for a 24-year-old no one really believed in. Now, I guess I could transition here to what this means for Egor Dёmin specifically, like coming back to what I was talking about earlier. Yeah, I think this is a concern, but I don't think it's something major to worry about. Plantar issues can be debilitating, but they're rarely something that leads to something larger. Like I said, it could lead to potential Achilles issues, but there's nothing in the reports that suggest that. He's 19, so he's pretty young. His body should be able to kind of like recover a bit better. And yeah, like it's not atypical to have a non-invasive procedure used for plantar fasciitis. That's actually kind of the standard, and I believe it averages about like an 85 to 90% success rate within like 3 to 6 months. So it's not like something where he's going to have to be missing the entire off season. He has to miss like training camp. Like it's something he can definitely come back to and not really see it be a lingering issue if it goes well. I do want to highlight, like, when you think of, like, players with foot issues and ankle issues, I'm going to be comparing Dwoman to another, like, all-time great guard, which is kind of insane. But, like, when you think about, like, Steph Curry's ankle issues in 2011 and 2012, he had 2 major surgeries during those years. And even then, with, like, those proper surgeries, that proper conditioning, he, like, really hit the gym and like increased his strength. He went on to win 4 championships and become one of the better players of NBA history. Again, not saying Dwoman's going to do that, but I will say that this isn't like the end-all be-all to Dwoman's career. Granted, he is also 6'9", so that is just something different than what Steph Curry had to do at 6'3". But I think this does kind of give the Nets a location, or not really a location, but like a direction to go in with Dwoman's development. You can think of it like he can. Sorry, I was trailing off there, but I'm thinking more in the sense of like, have him hit the weight room, which we've seen he's already been doing. He's put on about 10 pounds. I think if he puts on another 10 more, that could really strengthen his ankles. Continue playing a game that is more about spacing and pacing rather than slashing at the basket, which, yes, it would be nice if he could build an interior game, but the fact that he is shooting 39% from 3 as one of Brooklyn's best 3-point shooters, kind of in a season where there isn't a lot of other people to take that pressure off besides like Michael Porter Jr., that's a really good thing. There's also benefits that Dwoman might not have to be the main playmaker of the Brooklyn Nets. You have Nolan Traore, who's been developing well. I was hoping that Traore was more of a 6-man and that the main playmaking duo would have been Wolf and Dwoman. But Traore's development has surprised me. I think he's really good for what he is doing. And that definitely takes a lot of pressure off of Dwoman having to kind of be moving around as much. Danny Wolf, again, is a secondary playmaker. We're seeing Drake Powell carrying the ball up the court. Ben Saroff might be the one running the second unit. So there's enough playmaking, which it should ease up for Dwoman. Granted, I think Dwomin is a phenomenal off-ball shooter, so you want him to still be moving around, cutting, making the right kind of positional places for his shots. But really, I think Dwomin is developing a playstyle that would kind of benefit even if these health issues kind of linger. I think the only issue would be if it's primarily when he lands on his heel, and I know he was having a shooting slump before kind of everything fell apart and he had to take the non-invasive surgery, but maybe that was just because he just wasn't feeling good landing on that foot. Now, I'm going to end this off really quick. I was trying to make this a short video, but I think it's going to still be pretty long. But the outlook for Dwomin, he's still going to be a potential franchise cornerstone piece. Someone who could slot in the point guard, shooting guard, or small forward position. He can be a great off-ball creator. He can be a great on-ball creator. I'm very open to the idea that at worst he might be a taller Derek White. Someone who is either spacing the floor really well, doing some good secondary or primary playmaking, and playing good enough defense. And on the nights where he isn't shooting well, he is such a threat from behind the arc. It just opens up the floor for his other teammates. And the fact that he's already a good playmaker, good to great, I would argue, you can see him getting a lot more assists. You could see the Nets still scoring off of his gravity. I think the bigger issue is how we look at Egor Dômin kind of historically, like how we're going to look at him at the end of the season, how we're going to look at him 5 years from now. Again, I'm not projecting him to be a top anything player till we actually see it. However, we have seen his potential as a top 10 rookie to even potentially top 5 rookie in this 2025 draft class. I would personally put him anywhere from 6th to 8th at like his absolute best. But with this injury and him only playing 52 games, and it likely looks like they're going to be shutting him down for the rest of the season, he's definitely too far from the 65 game threshold to get an all-rookie nod. Like, I would argue that you can say he is a top 12 player with this injury, simply because he had some crazy games that like other players didn't, other rookies didn't. The game against Orlando where he not only scores like the clutch basket to take it to overtime, he's the only Brooklyn Nets scoring during overtime. Like, that is like insanely good for him. I think he went from like averaging 3 to 5 points that game to like 18 at the end, 18 to 22. And yeah, like he also broke a lot of records, like at least 2 records related to his 3-point shooting for NBA rookies, which is very impressive because this is the Con Knuppel draft class. And like if Con wasn't in this class, you could make an argument that Dwomin is the best shooter. I think second place goes between either Dwomin or Trey Johnson. However, I think you could give the slight edge to Dwomin because I think Dwomin is a bigger focus of the Nets right now. Again, I'm not watching Wizards games, but I think just kind of the allure of Dwomin having those 2 records kind of puts him in this air of like he is something special, But again, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Kind of the conclusion is that I think Dwomin's going to be fine. I think this is the right call for now. I don't think this is going to slow him down in the slightest, but we're going to just kind of have to wait and see. I might be pushing back videos to once a week until like the season ends, until the playoffs move. I was trying to make like a video on Bam dropping 83 points, but I had that like recorded. I had the images ready and it just wasn't working out. So I'm going to try using a webcam and then just putting images here and there. And yeah, we'll see where that goes. This has been Above the Net. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you all next time.